Will Burns, Chicago City Council. Welcome, Will.
Thank you very much, Reverend.
We have kicked around on the first part of the program tonight, how did the president win? It seemed obviously had a broader base. In addition to having a broader base, it seemed that the voter suppression became voter stimulation. Also, the ugly names called him. You're not an American, you're not a Christian, you are a retard. These were insulting names. And we began to internalize the insult that he was bearing our burden. He became a kind of living martyr. It took it to another level. Also, when he came in office, we had lost 4 million jobs. We gained 5 million, swing of 9 million jobs. More Americans, in fact, have health coverage. There are schemes to undermine it. There are more Americans are home from Iraq. More students do have Pell Grants. There were some upward signs that kind of gave him the extra. So we've got to that. Now that he has won, you are city councilman in Chicago. What do you expect?
Well, I expect that the Obama administration will protect discretionary federal spending, which covers a lot of the areas you just talked about: Pell Grants, programs that reduce or ameliorate poverty, the kind of things that you and Dr. King and the civil rights community have fought for the past 50, 60 years. If Mitt Romney had won, those would have been the first programs on the chopping block. I mean, the joke was about Big Bird, but the real target was TANF and Medicaid and Pell Grants and the kind of programs that help to make America a more small d democratic society and a fairer country. I think with the president at the helm, you'll see those programs protected. And I would also gainsay that the programs that really show bang for the buck, that improve America's economic position, vis-a-vis the Pell Grant, for example, which means we have more educated folks, which means we can compete around the world. I think that he's going to double down on those investments. So I'm excited about that.
But protecting is the status quo. In Chicago, for example, there are 160 schools that don't have a library, 140 in black and brown communities. Will that change? There are 100,000 vacant homes and abandoned lots because the banks devoured us. And they lost the lawsuit. And the fine the banks put upon the banks was like the price of doing business. So will people be able to reclaim their houses?
Well, you know, I would say that, you know, in the discretionary spending pot are federal housing programs. So as an alderman here in Chicago, we rely on those different programs to help finance affordable or mixed income housing developments, which are critical. Even in these times where real estate property prices have dropped, to making sure that people have access to affordable housing.
Kwame, do you think that reconstruction would be on the scale of destruction? I mean, banks targeted, street and clustered homeowners. And when the homes went, poverty came, tax base dropped, plants closed, jobs out, drugs and guns in. Will that process change in a big way?
I think, again, with accountability, I'm a big fan of following the dollar. We talk about investment in a lot of social programs that, yes, that we absolutely need. But when we talk about a jobs bill, when we talk about investment in infrastructure, we need to talk about how some of that investment creates and promotes black and brown business.
Do you think a job bill is on the way?
I think it will be. I think everybody, on a bipartisan basis, believes in investment in infrastructure. What we need to do as a community is understand why they believe in investment in infrastructure.
Well, last time around, Walker, for example, sent $1 billion back from Wisconsin. He would not take the infrastructure money that we make the steel lay the rail. He didn't want to connect inner city Milwaukee with the suburbs. The governor of Florida got $3 billion he sent back. They want Brock a name on the highway signage, you know. I mean, so that Christie, who emerged as embracing president because of Hurricane Sandy, turned down the infrastructure. So do you think that there will now be a renewed commitment to invest in infrastructure?
I do believe so, because again, it's about following the dollar. Investment in infrastructure means investment in businesses. Now, it's important for those businesses that thrive from investment in infrastructure to look like America. And what we often don't do is follow that dollar.
Dr. Kim, you work in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania as a professor. What do you expect to see different in Bethlehem now that we've won?
Well, we're struggling ourselves, and you know, it's a small area. I'm in the Lehigh Valley. There's 5 colleges. Everybody was holding their breath of who's going to win because so many students can't afford the tuition. They're all private.
Tuition, huh?
Yeah. So we're excited that Obama won because of the Pell Grant. But you know, so many students are leaving institutions. they just can't afford the tuition. And when students don't get educated, we can't progress as a country. We can't develop new things and new technology. So we're hoping that more jobs will come in, and that
I'm
students
trying to
can
bring in
afford
Dr.
education.
Sean's point. For Roosevelt, it was New Deal. It's like a big thing, not a program here or there. And it was a fair deal. For Johnson, it was a war on poverty and offers of economic opportunity. It was something that tried to correspond to the nature of the crisis. I looked at 40,000 vacant homes, abandoned lots in Baltimore, 100,000 in Chicago and Detroit. I did not yet sense any plan that corresponds with the size of the crisis, John.
I just don't think anybody should get credit for maintaining the status quo. I think a basic level of protections is what we expect from this president. It's not something we should celebrate him for. I think that there has to be a truly visionary moment that we, those of us who are goodwilled and care about these things, sort of push and direct the president as best as we can to accomplish. Without a thoroughgoing vision, not just for urban communities, but for all communities where people are suffering. What's good for black people and urban people is good for America.
Chicago, 100,000 vacant homes, abandoned lots. If that were a commitment to convene the banks and HUD and the right forces to reconstruct 25,000, which is 25% of them, you would need roofers and plumbers and glazers and paint. There'd be more jobs than there are unemployed people. That requires a commitment to a resurrected urban policy. In Baltimore, 40,000, 10,000 homes reconstructed. My point is, I was with a group of the ministers in Detroit some time back, and across the street was this abandoned house. Everything else was just gone. I said, ministers, what do you see? They said, well, what do you mean? What do you see? I said, we see tall weeds. I said, you see landscaper. What do you say? We see boards on the windows that usually need for glass. As the guys in the corner, they need a job. And that has to be some plan for reconstruction. If 4 years hence, the house is still there and the lots are still vacant, we will have failed.
Yeah. Well, I think that, again, if you look at some of the federal housing investments, neighborhood stabilization program, and you look at the stimulus, I heard the point about the New Deal earlier. In real dollar terms, the stimulus program that the president enacted in his first term was larger than the New Deal. In dollar, if you put them in 1930s dollars, the President Obama's stimulus plan was larger in terms of a federal investment in the economy.
But it was given to the states, and the states did not enforce the civil rights laws. So by and large, the target people did not get their share of the stimulus money.
Well, I mean, my point about that is that it signals that the president understands the importance of the role of government in terms of reducing inequality and injustice. And I think the president's insistence that the wealthiest among us pay their fair share, and then we return to progressive.
Big step in the right direction.
Big step in the right direction, and that we protect Social Security and make sure that it's available. The poverty rates in the United States would have been significantly higher if the Republicans had gotten their way on changing Social Security.
If the rich pay more, and if the war budget comes down, will those funds be redirected to those who are already over the cliff?
Those are the commitments that the president made in Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you look at folks who won U.S. Senate races, the Tammy Baldwins, the Elizabeth Warrens, I think you see a new crop of progressive senators in the U.S. Senate who will be fighting for those kinds of programs, will be allies of folks within the administration and outside the administration to maintain investments in those programs.
So you expect jobs and reconstruction?
I expect jobs and reconstruction.
Kim, what do you expect?
Oh, the same. And yesterday I was at a meeting.
That's what you want. What do you expect?
What do I expect? I think growing the economy.
You expect it will keep growing?
Yeah.
Show them what you expect, not what you want.
I expect us to have to make jobs and reconstruction the agenda.
By
doing what we're doing here, advocating, pushing. I don't expect that to be the agenda intuitively by the president or the administration. That's not going to happen. We're not even in the conversation. Poor people and blighted communities are not in the conversation right now. And again, that's not a slight against the president. There's a whole myriad of issues he's dealing with. So I expect those of us who care about these things to have to continue to do our work to put them on the agenda, so that we're not just talking about fiscal cliffs, Benghazi, Petraeus. What about Inglewood? And what about Appalachia? That's our work. That's what I expect.
I believe Sean is exactly right. When we first elected the president, there was immediate excitement going to inauguration and things like that. The energy of a campaign was not sustained. 2 years later, state governments went overwhelmingly to Republicans that were not interested in our community. We had to sustain the energy.
That's because the 2008 voters didn't vote in 2010 and therefore empowered it by definition, right?
Exactly. And so what the president invited during the campaign is for those outside of Washington to keep him and the
The
Congress
reason I keep
accountable.
raising this issue about what do we expect and what do we want to happen is that if they say 7.8% unemployment, in Inglewood it's like 60%, in New York, black males around 50%, same as true in Milwaukee. Will there be some targeted jobs plan? Will there be some plan to reconstruct destroyed neighborhoods? Will there be a bigger idea plan put forth to be debated?
If and only if we, as leaders and as a community, keep the president and the Congress accountable. The president has invited it. The president has invited it, and we must remain active and demand that investment
So
come back to the community.
will Illinois legislature do something that's demanding, did they say?
Again, the same situation. We won Democrat seats in Republican areas this time. So the people that made that happen have to keep the.
So you must deliver.
Exactly.
Be right back with closing thoughts. Welcome back. Kwame, he is one. What do we expect?
We expect that to have a redirection of resources from ill-advised conflicts abroad to domestic areas that have been ignored for years.
Dr. McMillan?
We expect this president, that is a good president, will become a great president as we push him and encourage him and lay out from him a moral vision. That's our work, to lay out a moral vision, to have reconstruction legislation put on the table.
Wipe out poverty.
Absolutely.
I expect social equality across gender, across race, that once we achieve equality, we can work for social justice, so building up from the bottom up.
Well,
I would expect a continued push to reduce inequality and injustice. I would also suggest that climate change will be on the agenda, which will have a very positive impact on our communities. If we can incentivize the creation of windmills and solar panels and have them built in America's cities by American workers, that's good for everybody.
we've got to stop home foreclosures that continue to be foreclosed, reconstruct homes that were lost. There must be some plan for a balanced trade so that there's no longer incentive to take jobs out of the country, undermine the American worker. Some plan to reinvest in America and put America back to work. Focus on jobs and poverty and end the violence. You are watching me tonight. I want you to go to your smartphone, right now, go to your smartphone and do this connection. Text the word push. Text the word push. Go to 95323. Text the word push. Go to 95323 and join this movement. We have an obligation and an opportunity to make America better and better. God bless you and see you next week.